In this tutorial, we are going to learn few advanced topics on prototype inheritance in JavaScript. The first thing we're going to learn is how the subclass object works, how to override. We will also learn how to override methods in prototype chain and adding methods to the master object in prototypes chain so that uh, we can use those methods for all the objects that we create. So in this tutorial, what we are going to do, we are going to create a base class object. And from the base class object, we are going to create two subclass objects, which will inherit properties from base class object, but it can have its own property. And then from each subclass project, we can create different objects. We're going to do the whole thing with using prototype inheritance. JavaScript does not have class definition like Java. So in JavaScript, instead of creating classes, you create constructors. And so essentially, we will have a base class constructor, and we can create subclass constructors. And using those subclass constructors, we can create objects. Okay, so here in this example, I created a base class named job, and it has a property called pays, and I'm assigning a default value to it, which is true. So basically, this is a base class constructor. I have a method print that I'm attaching to the prototype of the base class object job, and all it does, if the pay is true, then it just say hire me, or it says no thank you, I don't want this job. Now I'm going to create a subclass object called techJob equal to function. This is also a constructor. I'm going to call it title and pays. I'm passing these two variables. Now I can simply say this dot title equal to title, which is this guy here, and I can say this dot pays equal to pays. So by default, I set pays equal to true, and when I create a tag job, I can set this using a parameter. Now for this subclass, I want this job to be a base class. Right now, it's not. This class is independently defined. So how do I do that? So in order to do that, I can use call method. I can say job.call this. This line essentially calls this constructor and also set up this value and makes this a parent class or base class for subclass. However, it still hasn't inherited the prototypes of the base class. So we'll do that next. But just remember, calling this would set up this. Now, I have a great tutorial on call, apply, and bind if you want to learn. I'll provide a link here somewhere on the left side here, so you can look at it. Now, the second thing I want to do is I want to inherit from jobs, all the methods from jobs prototype. So for that, all I have to do is I need to create a prototype and copy. I need to do this. techjob.prototype equal to object.create, and within this I'm going to say job.prototype prototype. What this line is saying that I want to inherit from job.prototype. And the last thing I want to do is to set the constructor. So I want to say job.prototype dot constructor equal to tech job. Basically, I am setting this constructor as the constructor of tech job. I know the syntax is really weird, but all you have to pay attention to these three lines. First thing you have to do is call job.call this, which inherits all the properties and method defined inside the job. And the second thing you have to do is inherit from the prototype of job, which you can do using this line. And the third thing is to set a constructor for tag job using this line. Now let's create objects from this subclass. I can say var software position equal to new tech job, and I can say JavaScript programmer. This will be a title, and we can set the pay to be true, minted pays. Now I can do console.log. What it's going to do, since software position doesn't have its own print method, as you can see, it's gonna use the jobs prototype print method from here. So when I run this, it prints out, please hire me. I can also create a software position 2, and this would be for VB programmer. I can say pay equal to false. I know VB programmer also do get paid, but just for having a fun, we can say this. And if I run this, it's giving me, for the first one, it says please hire me because the pay is true, and the second one it says no thank you, for the software position 2, where the pay is false. Even though we have a print method here, I can actually override this print method, and I need to do it actually right after I inherit from. If I do it before that, it will override it. So I have added this a method print for tech job after I set the prototype for the tech job. This method basically, if the pay is true, then it's gonna print out job is great, hire me. If pay is false, then it's gonna say I would rather learn JavaScript. Now all I have to do is run this again. So if I run this, it says for the first position where the pay is true, it just says JavaScript programmer job is great, please hire me. For the second position, it says I would rather learn JavaScript. Now in prototype inheritance chain, first thing you would do when you call a method, so for example, if I call a method for software position, if I call a method print for software position, it will first look in its own prototype. If it has a method called print, then we'll run it. If it doesn't have it, it will look at the prototype of the tech job, which is this, and it would find it here, and it would use it. It would not go further up the chain. But let's say if this method was not here, like in the first example, it would go further down in the base class, and it would find it here, and it would run it. So this is a simple example how to create subclasses. In this case, it doesn't really override it. It actually shadows this print method, because in the prototype method you don't remove the method from the job.prototype. It doesn't reach the prototype chain to even execute that method. It would find it whichever method it would find first. Now here we have added methods to subclass and base class, but there are cases where you want to add method to the master object. Why would you do it? So that you can actually, for any object you create, you want a specific method. And now let's create a method. Now I have removed these prototype method print from the subclass and the base class, and I'm going to add into the master object. So this is the master object. You can see it here when I created using the create method here. Similar, I can add prototype dot print equal to function. Now this will add print method to the master object, and I can just simply say console.log I am executing from the master object. I want to capitalize the master so that we give them respect. Okay, so now if I run this, I would get this I am executing from. Hope you have learned something from this tutorial. If you did, then please follow me on Facebook and Twitter, and subscribe the channel, like the video, and provide some constructive comment.